Angie, I'd love to hear your opinion on how well you think they're doing, and I'm sure we'll give everybody an opportunity to opine on that a little bit later. But you're both a consumer of public education in terms of the people who come to work at NIPRO, and you're also a provider through NIPRO University of training and post-secondary training yourself. So I'd love for you to tell a little bit about that and what you think employers should expect from the public education system, both K-12 and higher ed, and what they should have to be prepared to do themselves.
Yeah. It really is a two-way street. So as much as the focus has been on, what can the state do for us as employers, it's equally as important. It's a 50-50, okay, between what the employers need to do for themselves, okay, in terms of training and education, and what we then expect from the state and the public schools and private schools to do. And then it's obviously the alignment of those two. So just let me give you a brief history that the NIPRO University was started over 33 years ago. And if you recognize, or anyone knows anything about NIPRO, you'll recognize or know that we only have one proprietary product. Okay? That's it. Okay? So we're really a service organization. Okay? And what we have to offer then is our people. We're really an inventory of minds. We have nothing proprietary on the floor that anybody else can't buy or that anyone else can't have made for themselves as well. So it's only our people, okay, that provide us with our competitive advantage. So while it may seem altruistic that, education is good and it's good for development, it was needed and continues to be needed for our survival. That it's the only competitive advantage that we have. Well, recognizing that, even 33 years ago, our owner and still chairman of the board, Gordon Langton, literally started the NIPRO University as a school-to-work program. It's kind of ironic, too, that we're talking now about how technology is driving the kinds of changes that we're making. Well, guess what? In about 1955, 56, a company called DuPont made something called nylon, okay? And people didn't know what to do with this stuff. They knew it was great, but it was very, very difficult to process. Okay? And so we said, well, here's a competitive advantage, which is really how the company started as nylon products, okay, and then learned and then molded and then became NIPRO. So we took advantage of that and said, well, let's grab this particular technology. Well, we've got to do some training. We have to understand the properties. We have to understand the processing capabilities. So what we did was we literally put in place this organization called at the time the NIPRO Institute. Gordon Langton, the chairman of the board, okay, as well as the president and owner, you get back to this leadership, taught all of the classes himself, okay, everything. Taught the processing classes, taught the finance classes, okay, taught the purchasing classes, taught the customer service classes, said with an eye towards, again, strategically, where are we trying to go? What ultimately is the objective? Well, the objective is to satisfy this core set of customers with this particular kind of technology that will require these kinds of skill sets. And so we didn't rely on just the public schools or the private schools or colleges. We recognized that, on this particular end, we had to do some customization if we weren't going to get where we needed to go. So we clearly had to understand the differences then between education and training. Oftentimes we use those terms interchangeably, right? But they're very, very different. So what's the outcome of education? The outcome of education is knowledge transfer. Okay? The outcome of training is skills transfer. Right? And quite frankly, for over 50 years, NIPRO did an outstanding job on the education side. And it's really what built the company. It was our ability to transfer knowledge, okay, not only within a plant, but from company to company, okay, and from country to country. Well, as the company began to grow, and we had $300 million companies, and guess what? They wanted multiple programs to run in different plants in different parts of the country. We recognized that just being able to transfer the knowledge across the globe was not going to be enough. They expected the skills to be transferred as well. Okay? And what we then recognized is that we needed to have a dedicated training facility. So we literally built what is probably considered one of the finest state-of-the-art process training centers in the country. Okay, we looked at the different curriculum that we needed in terms of identifying this scientific method of processing, and we put that in place. Then we partnered, okay, with the community colleges. We partnered with the high schools in terms of our involvement in the FIRST robotics program. We partnered with universities like Fitchburg State University and said, gee, we still got to get this knowledge transferred around the world. How do we do this? We literally created an online certificate program, okay, hosted by Fitchburg State University. We then went back in and put into place specific kinds of certificate programs in plastics technology, in robotics and automation, in industrial maintenance, all of the kind of skill sets that we were going to need to move us forward. So it's a very deep collaboration between recognizing what we need in those particular sets of skills and recognizing the education and knowledge transfer that we can get from the school systems. And then we apply those in a very, very close partnership, and that's what helps to move the company forward.
Maura, I'm going to give you a chance to put your IBM hat on for a minute. And, you know, it sounds like, I am actually very interested to learn that nylon was once considered high tech. So it gives you a perspective that we're not in unusual times, that this is something that isn't just new to us because we have, you know, electronic high tech, that this evolution of learning new skills and preparing people to do something different than what their parents were prepared for has been ongoing. And what we really need to do is prepare all kids to be lifelong learners, because the jobs that they will be filling haven't been created yet. And the problems they'll need to solve we don't even know about yet. So from IBM, if you just want to interject from IBM's perspective, what does IBM see in terms of its consumption of K-12 and higher ed and expectations, and what it as a company needs to do on its own?
Okay. So as I look around the room, I see lots of companies who are sort of in the same place as IBM, which is we understand we're the consumers of this product coming out of higher ed, and in some cases coming out of K-12. And so for decades, maybe 50 years, we've been involved in school partnerships, and they have, and if we have time we can spend more time on this, but they've morphed. They've been sometimes check writing, sometimes mentoring, sometimes tutoring, sometimes jobs for the students, sometimes all of the above. What we've come to understand, Linda, though, is that, take this state as an example, but certainly in the country as a whole, in Massachusetts there are 120,000 unfilled jobs. And they're unfilled because so many people are missing that sort of middle skill level. And when you talked about partnering with the community colleges, that's the first thing that jumped out at me. So we understand that students coming out of our K-12 system, even having passed MCAS, I'm back on the board stuff, but this is IBM gets this too. Even having passed the state tests and having some other experiences, they're really not ready for these middle skill jobs. So what we're doing at IBM now is kind of new, kind of scary, but definitely exciting. In New York, we've founded a high school, and we've done this in partnership with the New York Department of Ed, CUNY University, specifically City Tech, the technical school. We've decided that it's going to be a 6-year high school. The idea behind it is that you will get both the academic content as well as the experience in those 6 years. Some people will come out with the equivalent of an AA degree. Others will graduate with a certificate, but they will actually be in line for jobs at IBM. And we typically only hire college graduates, but we have identified jobs for whom a grade 14 credential makes sense. So I'm going to say a lot of we now, but it's a much bigger movement in industry. A lot of this was based on the work that was done by Bob Schwartz called Pathways to Prosperity, that looked at the people in this country that are left behind. Essentially, 67% of the future jobs don't need a grade 14, don't need a grade 16, they need a grade 14 equivalent. So we've started this high school, we're up and running, we have 103 students in grade 9, we have 103 IBM mentors who meet with those students on a regular basis. So no sooner had we pleased Mayor Bloomberg that Mayor Emanuel in Chicago said, me too. And so in Chicago, we're replicating the P-TECH model, and we're getting a little smarter about it. We have 4 other companies who are working on it as well. So Verizon, Motorola, Microsoft, and Cisco. And we haven't started there. The 5 companies will start next fall. The whole idea here is not to get business in the business of creating high schools. We have no place there. But we're trying to look more like the German model, where we're giving students externships, internships, and there's more of a serious crosstalk, not an episodic crosstalk between business and K-12, involving the technical colleges, the community colleges, the four-year colleges is the key component, because while they're going through these 6 years, they're getting college-level credit. So that's P-TECH in a nutshell, but I think it's important for me to say this, Linda, if I can take just another 30 seconds. If I relate it back to what I was talking about earlier with the task force that Gerald Chertavian is chairing for us, not everybody can or should do a P-TECH. I think the important place we are, at least in the Commonwealth, is we're recognizing that whatever business can do within a sort of scaffolded arrangement of opportunities, we should try and do. So part of this task force is actually working with businesses and saying, can you come in and talk about careers? Can you mentor students? Can you give them jobs? And the answer is not always going to be yes, and it shouldn't be. But we're getting to the point in this country where applied knowledge combined with academic rigor is critical to our national competitiveness. So I didn't mean to say go out and start a P-TECH, but that's a very exciting thing that I'm right in the middle of and loving every minute of it.